All right, Mr. Matt Dietz in the house. Hey, sir, thank you so much for being on the show here.
Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here. I
Yeah, it's
finally made
awesome.
it. I finally made it to your show.
Yeah, no, no, we should have been on here a long time ago because you've been in an insurance agency for 20 years now. That's already an accomplishment. 17 years Toppers Club, out of those 20 years. So that's great there. And yeah, it was great, awesome, just meeting you at the mega conference.
Yeah, I was so glad to see. You look at the list of people that go, before I went, and you and I hadn't had a chance to meet face to face, and so you were you're on my short list of people that I needed to sit down and talk to and get to know. So I'm glad it was a great conference because you can meet everybody if you really want to. So it's really intimate, and the people there were great. You did an amazing job speaking. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with everybody in the room and sending us all back into the field with some good thoughts.
Yeah, it was a great conference. It's just always a great idea to just, get around winning agents with winning mentality. So I got a lot out of it too. So yeah, shout out to the mega crew there. There's a
Definitely.
lot I want to talk to you about, you have the agency launch, which is coaching for agency owners. You really have passion for helping out newer agents, staffing. I know you're big on social, which I could talk about too. I love talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a lot of those things, but let's just start off with how you got started in the business and how you got to the first year out of the 20.
Yeah. Yeah. Very few of us kind of grow up, hoping to be an insurance agency owner, right? I grew up outside of Chicago, so I'm a Cubs fan, Bears fan, Hawks fan, Bulls fan. Grew up, got to see Jordan win all those titles in the 90s, which was amazing. I went to school in Michigan, and then after school, I worked on college campuses for 5 years. I worked for a couple years in New York, and then I moved out to Washington State. And I always wanted to move out west. Like I love the mountains, I love the climate. We had some family in Colorado, and it just felt kind of like home. So I did a job search, and I landed in Washington State, which is where I met my wife. And we moved down here to the Boise area in 2001. At the time, I took the first job I could get when I moved down here. I was working on college campuses, but at that point I'd been on a college campus for 10 years, right? I went to school and then I was like, all right, I need to see what the real world is like because I've been on a college campus for 10 years. So I kind of took the first job that came to me down here. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for 3 years, and
Hmm.
that was a tough gig for a while. You're washing cars in your suit and tie when it's 100 degrees out or when it's 0 degrees out, and it's like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. But that's where I learned how to sell because you have to sell their damage waiver. If you've ever rented a car, they always ask
Hmm.
you, do you want the coverage? And that's where I knew I had a knack for selling. Well, after I learned that if I wanted to move any farther in the company, I would have had to move out of Idaho. That was a stopping point for me because I didn't want to leave Idaho. So at this point, I'm 32 years old. And like, all right, let's, I don't want to find a job. I want to find a career. And so it was actually my dad. He's like, Matt, I think you'd be a good insurance agent because one of his friends was a State Farm agent and made a nice life for himself and stuff like that. And finally, after enough needling, I was like, fine, I'll go see what this is all about. I interviewed with a handful of companies and I landed with Farmers in 2004. So that's then I opened my agency and had no idea what I was doing and had to learn. I opened from scratch. First policy I wrote was my own car. I think I made like 28 bucks or something like that. So that's how I got started.
Wow, so no insurance experience at all, huh? Agency
None.
owner,
Like
day
a
one.
tiny bit of sales, but not even so you have to learn, product and sales and system and marketing and all that stuff. So yeah, here we go.
Wow. So how did your first few years work out? I mean, you know, uh, it's just
It was a
great.
grind. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I I was lucky. I had a few good DMs in the beginning of my career, and I still use some of the stuff that they taught me. I remember a moment I was at my desk. I worked out of the district office for like 18 months. I really liked that because there were like six agents
On you.
in the reserve program at the time.
Hmm.
And we all have no idea what we're doing, right? We have no idea how to do this. And I like that. There's a good energy. There's like a nervous, anxious, excited energy in that room because everybody's trying. And I remember sitting at my desk and looking at my computer, and I had my license, and I had my new like BlackBerry phone at the time. And I had a realization, and it was nobody's going to call me for insurance because nobody knows what I do. I just moved to, I don't know that many people in town. I ran through my natural market in about 36 hours, which was my wife's family, and I asked a few people that I worked with at Enterprise, and then I'm done. I'm like, so I was like, how do you do this job? Like, how do you, so I talked to my district manager, and he was the one, he's like, hey, mortgage brokers are a good place to go. Eventually, I joined a networking group, and that's where things really started to change for me because I really liked the way that I was into BNI. I really liked the way that they structured sharing business with each other by helping others, the giver's gain philosophy, and that really hit home with me. So I was able to help other businesses with, the expectation that they would want to help me, and it's a human instinct. I think if I gave you something, Dan, just like next week, if I sent you a book that I thought you would like, you would be grateful and thankful, and you would probably think, oh, what can I do that's nice for Matt? And so taking that and turning it into a way to earn the opportunity to write business was really powerful for me. And I really kind of leaned into that and joined a bunch of other groups. And I had to learn really to get out of my comfort zone, and you have to ask people for business. If you there, I'd never bought leads, so you have to ask strangers, hey, can I quote your insurance? And you got to be that guy. I had to be that guy for a while, or else no one was going to reach out to me. So the first 3 years, they were exciting. You run through the whole, series of emotions. It was scary. It was exciting. It was fun. But we did well. My first DM said I needed to write 20 policies a month. If I was writing 20 policies a month, I'd be off to a good start. And so that was like my first goal. And then we hit that, and I moved out of the district office 18 months after 18 months and moved in with another agency owner. We shared some space for a while. And by about the 3 year mark, I got my own space. So things started to go from there.
Nice. Well, yeah, a lot of just helping someone else. That is a great way to provide value, and then they help you out. So that law really works out well in your career. I could see that how you just like to help other agents too. I see that even with the content you put out right now. But 20 years, I mean, were there some moments just surviving 20 years? That's like a huge accomplishment. Like, was there any moments where you came close to giving up, or was that never, was it pretty consistent growth?
That's a good question. Um, I don't think I ever had a time where I thought of quitting. When I started this business, if I started this business when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have made it
Mm.
because my ego was too big. I thought I knew way more than I did. I wouldn't have been very coachable, and I would have failed. It took some growing up for me to learn some hard lessons. I got fired in old jobs and stuff like that because I wasn't a good employee. I thought I knew more than my boss, and like I wasn't a great employee early in my professional career. But I took that to heart, and I decided that I'd never wanted to be in that position again. I didn't like the way it felt. I realized ultimately that it was my fault. Those were my decisions that led me down that path. And if I didn't want to continue down that path, I'm the one that had to change. So so I started taking ownership for my actions, and I went through all of that before I started my agency, which is really important, I think,
Mhm.
because I would have been in a lot of trouble. But no, I never really came across something where I thought that this wasn't going to be a good fit for me. I like insurance, but I really love running a business. I think it's like a puzzle that you'll never complete. I think that It's every day is a little bit different. You're dealing with different people every day. You have different challenges every day. We're really solving problems almost every day, and I guess I like that. I like solving problems and making things better, and that's we do a lot of that, in this business, especially when we start having staff members. And I have a master's degree in leadership,
Oh yeah,
and so
wow.
so being able to have team members and lead them and help them be successful is very important to me too. And so I came into this field with, with a skill set that was right. I was able to, I had experiences hiring and leading and training and firing, like in past jobs. And so I brought a lot of that experience. Even though I didn't quite know how to do it in this field, I had the experience where I could translate it to what I was about to step into. So a lot of that helped out for me.
Yeah, if you like solving problems, then it's good to have staff because you'll have a lot of them.
Yes. Yes. How many staff do you have now?
We have here in the office 22 and some remote too. So yeah,
Nice.
plenty of problems, but we have a pretty good team culture. We one of our core principles is kindness, to be kind to each other and to clients too. So that kind of just that overarching philosophy kind of helps us get along pretty well.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
a great foundation to build a business on.
do you believe in core principles?
Core principles?
Hmm.
I was never like a mission statement type person, but core principles for us, I don't have any written down, but I'm sure that we have, I'm sure I have some, I put some thought into it. I know, like giving is definitely a core principle. Giving, and gratitude are things that I know that I've built a bulk of my business on. Being grateful and giving
Mm.
are two things that have really helped me feel good about what I do every day. This is a choice. We have a choice to be business owners. What we do here um, is up to us. And I love being in the space. I'm grateful I'm grateful that I have a job that I really, really like or that I love. Not everybody has that,
Yeah.
and so to be able to come into work, be proud of what has been built, continue building it, continue solving problems and figuring things out, maneuvering this cycle that we've gone through in the industry the last 4 years, has been really different than my previous 16 years. So I continue to learn. I really have a growth mindset might be another, core tenet of me. Like I love learning. And so I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I always want to get better and not just being a better business owner. Like I want to be a better father and a better husband and a better friend. And so, always trying to improve is something that is also important to me for sure.
Yeah, there's some good ones, and they're easy to remember because they all start with G.
That's
You know,
true. I got to write that
uh,
down.
gratitude, growth, and um, giving.
Yeah,
And I think that the giving and the gratitude not only that helps those clients, but it also makes you a good leader within your staff too. You want to help your staff members.
definitely.
How much of difference or what are some things you're proud of? How many staff members do you have, or anything you want to share about you know
Yeah,
your staff?
staffing. I think staffing is it's the most important part of our business. It allows us the freedom to do the things that we want to do and that we're good at, right? And so having a good team that can take care of, the machine behind the scenes while we can be the face and market and sell and do that. That's what I always wanted. And so having good staff is crucial. It's very hard to build a good team too, as you know. Um, I have, I've been doing this for 20 years. We've got about 4,000 policies. I have two people that work for me. So I'm unique that way. I talk to a lot of agents and they're like, Dietz, how are you doing that with two people? And it's kind of all I've ever really known. I would absolutely hire somebody else if my team was spread too thin. if
Mhm.
they were just run too ragged or we were falling behind, or I had customers that were complaining. You guys are never getting back to me. You're not returning my calls. I asked for this, I never got it. Once you start getting that kind of feedback from your clients, staff up. Like we got to get somebody else in here because we're sinking. I've
Mhm.
never I've never had that. So the hiring process has evolved over 20 years, and my last three hires have just been spectacular. I have one person that pretty much runs my entire book from a customer service standpoint. She's incredible. She does everything. She's been with me for 5 years now, and everyone loves her. And she just works hard, is has a lot of integrity, and she's smart, and she takes care of my people. And so I delegate. She gets a lot of forwarded emails from me, every day. She just takes care of it. And then I've got a good salesperson that I've had for 7 years now. Um, and he's a total pro too. And the three of us can get things done, And so, um, yeah, I'm proud of that, to be able to run a business like that with just a couple of people. Um, because I've stepped up in the past. I had six people at one point and two offices at one point,
Mm.
but I wasn't making any more money than I was with one office and two people because I had a revolving door. Those six people I couldn't find good producers to stick.
Mhm.
And every producer that fails costs about $10,000, And so I was tired of, you spend 50 grand, you go 0 for 5 and you're like, how long are we going to do this? And so we pivoted, and I had to go through that phase of my career to know that I wanted to stay really lean, with my footprint. I have 600 square feet, and then I've got two employees and that's it. And we do really well, but I had to go through that period, to know that this was kind of what I wanted to do.
Nice. Yeah, talk about efficiency there. Each member is that just speaks volume of how good they are to be able to handle that much clients.
Yeah.
And the part of the clientele you have too, like, a quality clientele that doesn't need that much hand holding when it comes to paying or, you know, different things too. So yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah. So let me tell you a few things that have worked for me over time that I like to tinker with my business a lot. Like if I want to try something, I always want to try and be more efficient with my time or my money. If it sacrifices customer service to a degree where I'm getting complaints, we'll bring it back, or we'll put back what we took apart. So a few things that I've done over over my career. So my wife and I, um, we go on walks we walk 3 or 4 times a week for about an hour and a half. We go on like 5 or 6 mile walks, and it's awesome because those are like our staff meetings. She owns a business too. Okay. So she's in the medical field and she owns a business too. She has two employees. She treats patients. So we have similar things to discuss, and we're each other's business partners, so we go back and forth and we tell our stories to each other and we help solve problems together and stuff like that. It's really great. When my kids right now, they're 18 and 16. When they were younger, like maybe 10 and 8, my wife looked at me on one of our walks and she said, Matt, remember when we started these businesses? Like we did it because we were going to, maybe have a little bit more time, a little bit more free time, with for each other and for our kids. I was like, yeah, I remember having that conversation. And she said, when does that happen? And it was a really important moment and a really important question, because she's right. Like we talked about it, but we were just working with our head down, building businesses, and we were doing great. Like we had nothing to complain about. But I was like, that's a good question. So what came out of that conversation was, I said, look, I will start taking Fridays off. And if anything changes in my business that's detrimental, like if our premium drops or our production drops significantly, I'll go back on Fridays. And that was probably 10 years ago. And I haven't worked a Friday since, so I started taking Fridays off and we actually had a better year than the year before.
Wow.
So I was like, that's cool. That was a risk, that was a risk I was willing to take, but it paid off great. So now my wife and I have Fridays off together because we never had date nights. We were building businesses and we had little kids and we didn't have like Wednesday's date night. We didn't do that. And so Friday became like our day, which was amazing. So another thing that we did in my office to try and be efficient with our time was between 12 and 1 every day, we turn our phones off in our office so that my team has a chance to catch up on anything that they may be behind on. So between 12 and 1, the phones are off, it's lunchtime. And I did that. That was a risk too. I was like, God, I wonder if I'm going to get creamed for this. I wonder if I'm going to have clients that are going to be upset about it. I can't reach you between 12 and 1. No one has complained in 8 years. And it has really helped us, take a deep breath in the middle of the day. It's really helped us catch up on maybe a few things that we need to focus on. And that was a win for us too. And when you said, I've got good clientele, you're right. I think sometimes we have to train our clients, Dan. I think sometimes we have to, like my district manager said, hey, when I go to my bank's closed on like every other Friday or something like that. He goes, and I know not to go to the bank on those days. And I thought that was interesting because that's kind of what so now people don't call between 12 and 1 because they know we're not available. We all know businesses that take lunch breaks off. Do we give them a hard time for it? No, we just don't call between 12 and 1, right? So, so a few things too. And then I stopped answering the phone. Like I don't answer my phone. I haven't answered my phone in 7 or 8 years. And I've trained and now, Dan, people don't call for me. They're like, is Meg there? Like they just want to talk to Meg. Like Meg does everything, right? And so my clients are trained to talk to Meg, not to me. I'm here for higher levels. I help her and we debrief every day and I help her through stuff, but she handles all the heavy lifting, which is great. So those are some things that have happened that I've infused into my agency to give me some balance, to allow me to do the things that I want to do. Um, and I love it. They've all been wins.
That's great. That's awesome that, you had the mentality of like, let's just give it a try. Tinkering is something that I think we all should do because how else we're gonna find out? But I like how you said that, like, hey, we could try it, and if it doesn't work, we just go back to how it was. Like, what's the risk? It's just we can't find out until you test things out. And
Yeah, I kind of have a 90-day rule for whenever I try anything. You can't try things for a week, right? That's not big enough sample. But I'll try something for 90 days. It's kind of my benchmark and see how we feel. After the 90
mhm,
days, did this work? Do we need to go back? And changes don't have to be permanent.
mhm,
Very few changes are. You can always change back. I signed a 5-year lease when I bought that other or when I opened that other office and I moved out 2.5 years into it. Like it wasn't like I just found somebody to sublease. So
mhm,
it wasn't it doesn't have to be things don't have to be permanent. And I think that's
mhm,
important. That was an important lesson for me to understand. It gave me freedom. Once I knew that, it gave me freedom to be able to tinker more and to try things more because let's play. I like playing outside the lines a little bit, doing things a little bit differently, to see if we can be more efficient.
mhm. And yeah, the
Uh,
lifestyle, I could just imagine your lifestyle. It's yeah, the great balance there. And that's kind of what money can't buy is the freedom that this job, this opportunity kind of provides for us. So you're a great example of just playing the game the right way. It's just done in a very impressive way. I
yeah.
want to ask you when you said, you're able to kind of design your job to be able to do what you like. So what would you say at this point is what you like to do? Is this still tinkering things or is it kind of well, there's so many parts of running a business, I totally relate to that. Like I get to do what I like to do and delegate some of the stuff that has to be done. But what's your things that you like to do?
And it changes, right? We have the ability to have it to have it evolve and to change. So there have been years where I've really got embedded into the small business community. So commercial was really a place I liked to spend time with for my business, writing commercial insurance. I learned early on in my career that the conversations I was having while I was trying to earn business with prospects or having conversations with current commercial clients, I really enjoyed those conversations. I really connected with those people because that's what we are. We're small business owners, right? And so you can have really organic conversations with these people that were enjoyable to the point where, hey, where are you finding good people to hire? What are you doing to save money on taxes? What are you doing for healthcare? Like we all go through, what are you doing for marketing? How are you finding new people? Having these conversations with colleagues or peers that are running different businesses, we can learn from each other. They're easy conversations to have, they're fun. And so I took that feeling that I had and this is when I started podcasting back in 2014. I started interviewing small business owners here in town
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to meet more business owners. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the best. This is the best thing that I've ever done as far as outreach for marketing. I started with my business owners that I insure. Okay. So I reached out to them. I was like, hey, I'm starting a new project. Would you let me interview you about your business? Because I think every business has a story and I'd like to tell yours. No one says no to this. Okay. They're like, yeah, come on in. So they come on in. We put the microphone between us, and I'm naturally curious. And so I just ask a bunch of questions, and then bang, you've got a great piece of content that you can share with them. They can share with their audience. They're proud of it. It's easy to pull information out of people like that because they talk about their business like they're talking about their kids, like I'm doing right now. Right. And so I did I interviewed about 15 people. And then I started asking those 15 people if they knew anybody who had a good story like theirs. And things really opened up from there. They started referring me business owners to interview. And from there, I was getting to business owners that I would have never got in front of without this tool. And to date, I've interviewed 150 local business owners here in town, and I've met so many cool people. I have learned so much. I've written a lot of business. It doesn't cost anything but time. And it's
You like
super
it?
fun. So
Yeah.
right. And so it's awesome. It's the best thing I've done from a marketing standpoint. And plus I love the tech, and I love, again, I built this from scratch. I had to buy the microphones. And I did this before there were tools that were easy to use. I was running it through my WordPress blog, and I had to make all these things connect, and I had to put the audio over here, and I had to connect it through iTunes, and I had to bring it back around. It was something that was really fun to figure out. And honestly, Dan, I did this at a period of time when I noticed that people were always staring at their phones. Remember, there was a moment in time where you looked up and everybody you saw was just staring at their phones. It hasn't changed, right? And I thought
That's
of
when it
that.
first happened, right?
Yeah, you're like, something's different.
Yeah.
Uh, when I started noticing that, from a business owner standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, if people are spending time and putting their attention to one place, my question was, how do I get in there? How do I get in their phones? Right. And so that's when I started podcast. I'm like, I'm going to try and get in their phone. I'm going to try and get in their podcast app. Podcasts were starting to come up. They were starting to become more popular. And I was like, I'm going to try and get in there. Nobody in town was doing local podcasting, back in 2014. And
Yeah.
so I was like, and I remember when I did my first episode, I published it and I had my phone and I was like, come on, baby, because I didn't know if it was going to work or not. Right. So you're refreshing it and refreshing it. And then there it showed up and I was stoked. I was like, that is so awesome. So it was a lot of fun.
Wow, that's a great story, Matt. I think
Yeah.
that's something that, yeah, instead of, hey, can I give you a quote? It's like, can I interview you? And
Yeah.
there's something flattering about that. Like, and business owners, sometimes only business owners could understand each other. It's like there's just something there where it's like you have your staff, but you just can't really like they just don't. they just don't know what it's like to be a business owner. So you can't have these conversations unless you're in the same you're the same breed almost, you know? So just talking about
Yeah.
that stuff is just a great way to connect. And sales is about connection. So once you have that conversation, you're getting to know each other and understanding their struggles and their challenges and you know how they overcame, then there's that connection. Then there's just so much more trust and likability, and that prospect's closing ratio just goes way up. And even if you don't sell them, it's just like just a great conversation and getting to introduce you to other people. So that is just a brilliant um, marketing strategy. And at the same time, I feel like you're giving back to the community too. Like there's probably aspiring entrepreneurs out there listening to these conversations that want to know what it's like to be a business owner. So that insight itself is valuable too. So yeah, creating content in that format to get sales, you know, to get business sales, that's something that I'm glad that we have this recorded here. So
Yeah.
I could say other people could say I heard it here and then now they're doing it. Hopefully we're helping out some agents because that totally makes sense to me. I don't know why I didn't never thought of that myself. That's just brilliant, Matt. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been good. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, 20 years in, and it seems like the passion is like there. You look great, by the way, too. Probably all that
Thanks.
walking, but what would you tell agents that like, man, like I get burned out, like it's like a grind. It's like how do you keep that passion, or is it natural to you, or is there anything you could? I mean, you already said it, like you want to delegate and do stuff you like, but anything else you could share about just keeping that energy going?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's down or having a tough go, like a lot of people are, and I talk to a lot of agents, I try and figure out, what's bringing them down. Is it, you know, is it, is it, is it, whatever. You hear a lot of people complain about a lot of different things. I don't complain about things I can't control, and I really try and infuse that to people that I like. There are a lot of things we cannot control. We cannot control. You know this better than anybody, because Bristol left what happened to you in California. Like you could not control what happened when Bristol West, non-renewed all of those policies for you, and I can't imagine what that felt like. But that's the biggest example of like there are things that we cannot control. We can't control our product, we can't control our pricing, and like you really have to. We can't control our commission structure. We can't. There are things that we cannot control, and like somewhere down the line, I taught myself or learned to really just not worry about any of that stuff because I can't. You can have feelings about it and you can have thoughts about it, but you can't let it ruin your day. You can't let it, knock you off center. So what can you control? You can control um you can control how you choose to staff. You can control the products that you're choosing to sell, right? You can control the hours that you work. You can control the experience that you give your customers. You can control the experience you give your team. Um, so, really focusing on the things that you can control and giving it, uh, learning the best way to do those things. Again, like I said before, I really have a growth mindset. So trying to get better at the things that you can control has been really important to me in my career. I've onboarded, you know, health insurance 12 years ago and Medicare 10 years ago. Like these are things that I brought into my agency a long time ago. And so selling what's on sale is something that I was taught early on. I know there are agents around the country that are having a really tough go because it's maybe pricing for some of their products is really, really tough. But there are other products to sell. I'm sure they're tired of hearing that. But, there's life insurance and there's commercial. You can onboard health and Medicare. We have a lot of options. We can sell something to almost anybody. And that's something that I learned early too, or that was a mindset that I had. And it was really empowering to know that I could walk around the block right now and I could ask five people if they want a quote. I can control that. I can control how big my pipeline gets if I choose to go fill it. You know what I mean? So my pipeline isn't going to fill it by itself. I have to fill it, so the power of choice is really something that I've worked on and is really important. It's something I try and teach my team, especially so when agents are down, what can we lean into? What choices do we have? Are we making good choices? Choosing to complain for an hour is not a good use of time. Let's make better choices with how we want to use our time. So, yeah, I have some rose-colored glasses. I get it. That's the way I choose to go through my days, though. That's my choice. So I'd rather do it that way you know, than complain. So that's been my attitude's been pretty healthy, this whole time. So
Yeah, well, you've seen it all within 20 years, but you're absolutely right. We have a lot of choices that we can't control, but the ones we can control is our attitude. And I think when you look at it that way, it just feels so much better because if you feel like, you know, you can't control anything, then you just feel helpless. Like it's like, wow, like I'm just a victim. Like I can't do anything about anything. It's like
yeah,
that's such a um a state that's depressing. But if you feel like, hey, I could control my attitude, I could control my work ethic, I could control, my gratitude level, those things will make it feel like you do have control. It just empowers you to be able to improve your situation. So yeah, I really like how you said like just focusing on what you can control and actually be grateful that we have these choices. So that's one of
yeah,
the things you mentioned too. And a lot of times it's just like, hey, I can do this, I can do that, I get to do this. Those are much better ways than looking at things than the thousand other things we could focus on that are, yeah, tough. But what are we gonna do about that? Let's think about what we can do.
yeah. And the other thing I learned, I got a quick story I want to tell you. I was like a 2-year agent. I was working out of the district office. I was driving into my district office to work for the day. I got a call from my DM and he was like, Matt, I got some bad news. He goes, we were broken into last night and your laptop was stolen. I was like, oh my God, that sucks, but so I was brand new. I was a pretty new agent. I didn't know much about commercial insurance, right? So I go into the office, my computer's gone, and I wasn't worried about it because I was like, well, my district manager, he has insurance, right? I'm sure my computer's covered on his policy. We all know that that is not the case. I did not have a commercial. I did not have a commercial policy. I'm the agent, right? And so I'm the one that doesn't have the commercial policy to cover my own stuff. I did not know that. I was mad at my DM because I kind of blame. I'm like, why didn't you tell me I needed? Like, this was all my fault, 100%. What came out of that experience was learning that everything that happens in my agency is on me. Okay. Whether I know how to do it right or not, like everything that happens in my agency is on me. So taking full ownership of everything that happens in your agency is something that I learned in that moment. It was scary, but it was also really exciting at the same time. I was like, oh God, everything is up to me. I think that's good, but it's also scary, So it allowed me. I expanded. mm, I expanded the way that I saw my business after that. So I take
Mm.
ownership for everything. If I have a bad employee that treats a customer bad, I'll own it. That's a training issue. Okay. If a customer if I have an employee that doesn't get back to a customer or does something wrong, I'll own it. Like that's my employee. I'm the one that hired them. I'm the one that chose them to work out there, and I didn't teach them how to do something right. So, and once you have that and you can empower yourself with understanding that everything is on you, there's a freeness that comes with that. There's also a burden that comes with that. It's something that never goes away. Like there's this low hum that you carry with you wherever you go because it's a big responsibility. You running a business is a big responsibility. And so you always kind of carry that with you. Um, but it doesn't really bother me. I like having to be responsible for it. And I'll take that challenge. So that was an important experience for me to go through to really understand that everything is on me.
So it's not my DM's fault that I'm not selling that much.
It's not Dan. That's on you. You're not selling enough, Dan.
No, but yeah, no, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
no, I totally get it, man. It's liberating actually. You know, it's like wow, like I have full control. It's like it's freeing experience. And like, I had the same experience. I don't know exactly when. I'm not sure if I heard it on a podcast or heard it on some type of content or read it somewhere, but I was like, that's so true. Like we have 100% of control. Yeah, in the beginning, it sucks to say it's my fault because it kind of you have to take like a, depending on your size of your ego, it's like a little hit there. You're like, oh, I sucked at that. I didn't do good at that. So like, wow, you have to keep telling yourself, I suck at that. I didn't do good at that. But
right.
then, but it's actually better that way than putting the blame on someone else and then giving them the control.
Right.
So yeah, that is a great way for all of us agents to take responsibility of where we're at and then realize that like, wow, we have full control of improving our situation.
Yeah. I've seen that de-escalate. So like if I have a client that comes in and there's a mistake that came out of my agency, whether it was me or someone else, and I've seen a client come in, with a full head of steam and they're upset, they're agitated, their voice is raised. And if you can stand toe to toe with them and be professional and be like, this is totally my fault. And if you say that to them, like you'll notice a complete shift in the tone of the conversation. They get less tense, they're being heard, you know. There's nothing to what can they say to that? They can't are they going to keep going? Like this is totally my fault. Let me work on fixing this for you. I don't want you to, we have to make this experience better for you. So this is my bad. I'm going to, whatever the situation is, if you own it, and that doesn't have to be just professional, Dan, you can do this with your spouse. Okay. You can do it with with your friends or your family. It really takes the tension out of the air if you're like, yeah, that's my fault. I shouldn't have said that or I shouldn't have done that. You're right. And like everything slowly starts to melt away. And that's, you know, that's been an important thing for me to learn too is, humility. I don't know everything, so, and what we do is hard. There are a lot of moving parts to what we do. It's totally possible that we miss something, things change every day. I just got something yesterday that says we're going to change the way that we handle roofs here in Idaho. And I'm like, all right, this is a new thing that we have to learn. I got to get a new piece of paper signed with every client I have. And so there's a lot that comes with running a business like this. Change is the only constant, right? So you really got to, and sometimes things fall through the cracks, but it's okay. That's why I'm okay taking risks with things too, because just about everything, if you make a mistake, just about everything can be fixed too, So, um, oh yeah, just a lot of lessons I've learned over these 2 decades.
Yeah, important ones that you're sharing right now, the most important ones, which I really appreciate. Yeah, mistakes can happen, but I think that's one of your values is growth, right? So I
Hmm.
think when you accepted that that was my fault, then there's actually change involved. Because when you say it's their fault, then you're saying I don't have to change. So
Right.
there is no growth.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense that one of your core values is growth, and it's like, well, we're gonna have to take a lot of responsibility. You're gonna have
Right.
to say my fault a lot, but
Yeah.
that's actually for your benefit, for our benefit, for taking responsibility. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of good stuff there. I still want to talk a little bit about the newer agents here. Okay, so the newer agents, you have a passion for helping them out. There's a lot of knowledge you're already sharing with us. What's something else that you haven't really talked about yet that could help out the newer ones out there?
Yeah, I think like getting the most out of your team is really important. I think a lot of newer agents, even 5 years, 6 years, 7 year agents, aren't getting the most out of their team. I think, and I would ask you to ask yourself why. I try and delegate everything away, and I kept delegating and giving more responsibility to my team. If you have the right team members in the right seats, they will absorb all of it. You're giving them you're empowering them. I think that they want to do, good employees want to do a good job for you, right? And they'll take what you give them. I don't want to give them more than they can handle. I haven't hit that part yet, which is why I'm saying like I give them a lot. I told you my agency is 4,000 policies. We have a lot of clients. My team can handle all of two of them can handle all of them. So people can handle a lot. So I just would encourage, newer agents not to be afraid to find that ceiling, for your employees. When it comes to managing staff, I've kind of have a three-step process to make sure that you end up having good staff members. One is setting measurable expectations. It's so important to set measurable expectations. Okay. Whether that's with, I don't care if they're a CSR or a producer, they should have something measurable to hold them accountable to. For a producer, it's easy, right? You've got premium. Like
Mhm.
you got to make sure you write this much premium. But also, the way I built my agency is that everybody's responsible for some premium. So premium is a goal that everybody that's ever worked for me has. So setting measurable expectations. Number two is you have to train them. It's your job to train your employees to do the job that you want them to do. And so I really micromanage my training hard for 60 to 90 days. I want that because I don't want to manage them at all. Like that's the goal, right? I train the hell out of them for 60 to 90 days and then I start lengthening the leash and eventually let go. And like I don't need to manage them at all. I want to get to a point where I'm cheering them on. I'm a fan of theirs. I'm supporting them. I'm not managing them. I'm supporting them. So that's my goal with my team. And then the last part of that is holding them accountable. And that's the part that a lot of agents have a hard time doing is if they're not hitting their measurable expectations and you're not going to hold them accountable, you're essentially not holding yourself accountable and you're enabling behavior that is subpar and your agency will suffer because of that. So if you let an employee get away with writing $20,000 worth of premium when their goal is 30 and you let them keep writing 20, that sends a message to your entire team that they don't have to hit their goal because, well, he doesn't have to hit his goal, so I don't have to hit mine. So you're enabling subpar behavior and you're not getting what you should be getting out of your team, which is 30,000 with the premium or whatever your goal is, right? And so setting measurable expectations, training, and holding accountable is kind of my three-step simple tenet, to building a productive staff. So that's one thing. Having good staff members is really important. And the other thing is time management. Like managing your time is really important. And when it comes to sales or producers, um, if they're not adding to their pipeline, quoting, or selling, like that's all they should be doing. That's it. Like if they're doing something else, they're wasting time. And so that's one thing they let a lot of producers kind of get away with work that's not driving premium. So that's it. Are you quoting? Are you adding to your pipeline or are you closing business? Like that's it. That's what producers are for. And so and they have 8 hours in every day. So like what are they doing every day for 8 hours? If you have a producer that's not producing or they're not quoting, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing all day? Right. I mean, it's a big problem. We've all had them. There are agents out there that have them right now. And you have to ask you, like, why didn't you quote anybody today? Like, why didn't you add to your pipeline? What are you doing? Um, so yeah, managing your time and making sure your team is being productive is really important because it's an easy thing to kind of turn your head and be like, well, we can't hope. Like, God, I hope he does something today. No, you've got to be involved with that, right? So those are some things they're hard to do. Like we've all kept employees too long,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that's a lesson that you have to take emotion out of that, which is why holding them accountable to a measurable goal makes it really easy to let someone go, right? It's right there. Like you didn't write 30,000 for 2 months in a row. You did 20, you did 17, you're out. So it's not that easy, but it's still, it's very hard. I hate firing people. It's the worst part of the job for me. But it's important. We have to learn how to do it. And you have to learn how to have those conversations. You have to learn the process. You should never fire anybody that's not expecting to be fired, unless they do something terrible, but if it's due to production, there should be warnings along the way, verbal warnings, written warnings, stuff like that. And a lot of times, if you work it that way, they'll just quit, before you even have to fire. If they know it's coming, they'll be like, this isn't for me. And that's pretty common. This is a hard job. Being a producer is a hard job, which is why a lot of us don't have great producers.
Mm.
So,
What other things do you measure besides premium?
well, if they're not hitting premium goals, then you go to the next level, right? You're like, well, you have to diagnose why they're not hitting their premium goal. So I look at quotes next, right? So how many quotes are you doing next? If they're not hitting their premium goal, it comes down to activity, right? So we look at, all right, what you should know what your closing ratio is, for your agency. So you should be able to know how many quotes they're doing to hit their premium goal. So how many quotes are you doing? If that's low, you know that they're not generating enough activity to quote enough. That's why they're not hitting enough premium. So you have to figure out, why are your quote numbers low? Are you not making enough dials? Are you not asking enough people? Are you not sending enough emails? Whatever you're measuring there, you can measure emails, you can measure phone calls, you can measure organic asks, to people in the field. So those things you have to be able to diagnose and be like, you made 7 calls yesterday. Like, no wonder you're not hitting your premium goal or something like that. So those are the things you have to measure next. Now, if they do have enough quotes, then it's a sales issue, right? You're like, well, why aren't you
Still,
closing your deals? Oh, because you're emailing your quotes out and not having sales conversations with people. That's why you're not hitting your premium. You're just quoting things up and emailing them away. And the customer is just going to scroll down, look at a premium, and then delete it because it's more expensive. You have to sell these. We're rarely going to be the cheapest. So you've got to step up to the plate. You got to sell your product. You got to believe in it. You got to put these people in a better position, and you got to give value. So you have to diagnose where their shortcoming is, and turn the screws on some of them, move some levers, make sure that you're giving them the best opportunity to succeed. And again, sales is hard. You can do some role playing. You can do some talk paths. There are a lot of different ways that you can help people figure this out. But that's what I do. You have to figure out why they're not hitting their number, and then you got to work on that.
yeah, it's either a skill or activity issue. But yeah, I love those three pillars there you have because you're looking at the big picture there. So yeah, that's a way well put way to help out newer agents because staffing truly is the key to agency growth. We just can't do it by ourselves. So yeah, Matt, before I'll let you go, let us know a little bit about agency launch. You've been doing this for about 4 years now.
Yeah, agency launch kind of came out of I started it in the pandemic. Like I told you before, Dan, I got a background in leadership, and I've built an agency that's a little bit different than my peers, and I wanted to share how I did it. So it was originally I asked myself, what do I wish I knew when I opened my agency? And I sat down one night and I wrote 50 things down. It's like, I wish I knew all of this when I started. And that was kind of the core of how agency launch was built. Those things fell under 4 different pillars. There's marketing, sales, staffing, and retention. Like, all those 50 things fell under one of those 4 pillars. And so I built it. I recorded a video for every one of those 50 things. There's
Wow.
PDFs in there. There's all kinds of stuff in there. There are trackers, like employee manual. There's all kinds of stuff in there. And that's kind of how I started it. So it was an online on-demand product. Um, and we sold a few of those, but a lot of people buy these things and they don't use them. You have to be really disciplined to go through an entire, self-directed course that you purchase. And so I saw that it wasn't really being used like the way I wanted it. People were buying them, but I could tell that they weren't watching it. I'm like, well, what's the purpose? So then I got into one-on-one coaching, which is, I think it's pretty unique. I don't think there's a lot of that in our space. And so what I do now is they get the whole platform, but that's kind of secondary now. Now they get me. And so they can get me for 12 months, 6 months, or 3 months. And we meet every week for 45 minutes to an hour. I do not have a syllabus. I don't have, like, we solve the problems that they need to solve that week. And so if they have a staffing issue, we talk about a staffing issue. If they got a big commercial account they're going to try and land, we talk about that. If they need to learn how to land a big life policy, we do that. So, like, whatever they need, we talk about that week. And then they have the agency launch platform to go back on. So sometimes I'll say, hey, make sure you watch this module, brush up on that skill, talk about it next week. And then they can text me throughout the week too. I'm available to them all the time. So I'll hop on a phone call with them, or I can bang out a quick text as a response to a simple question they have. But it's been so much fun and it's been very rewarding and it's been really successful. Like I helped a first year agent here in my state make $130,000 in his first year. I mean, it felt so good, to help him, achieve that for his first year. He made $9,000 in his first 3 months, and then he hired me. And then from months 4 to 12, he made $120,000 when he brought me on. And so it was just, it's some of the best parts of my week is when I'm meeting with my agents and helping them along. So I love it. It's super fun.
Yeah, let's talk about a 20-year shortcut there of knowledge, from especially for a new agent. And I like the one-on-one format too because, it's really get deep dive into their specific problem that they're having that week. It's not like, hey, I have an agenda, like we want to talk about this. And then it's like a group setting where you can't ask your specific questions, it's just literally just here's my problems.
Yeah,
And
let's get
you
after
get,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, um, we also help them avoid bad decisions, right? And so like there's so many decisions that newer agents are going to come up against, and to be able to give them advice, don't do that, do this, because I did that and that was bad. So I want you to do this, so it really accelerates their career significantly. The good agents are going to get there by themselves, but I'm going to help them get there faster. And the agents that work best with me I use the word desperate, are agents that are desperate to be successful. They know they have like the qualities to get there. And they're like, I just don't know how, I'm the how. And so we'll fill in those gaps and we'll get them there a lot quicker. And so if you got someone that's motivated and coachable, like we can do a lot of really good work. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're like their guide. They have the drive and ambition, but you just have to kind of sometimes, get pointed in the right direction or avoid the wrong direction, like you said.
Oh, yeah,
That's
100%.
almost even more valuable.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the funny thing is we've all made the same mistakes too. So, and we can relate. Like, I get it. I get why you wanted to try that. I get why you're thinking of that. But yeah, trust me, I've tried it. So, a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, yeah, agency launch. Maybe you could share with me the links I could put in the description here. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a
it's
pleasure getting to know you and talking to you. I mean, just a lot of good stuff that, as I could, it's 17 years in, it's just we've seen the same stuff and we've been through a lot. And it's just I feel the passion you have for helping out agents and your staff and your community. The podcasting, I mean, just that by itself, I'm pretty sure every agent's gonna have one now, thanks to you.
I hope
But
so.
they should.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan. Like you've been a leader in this space for a long time, and I'm a big fan of any agent who's willing to help other agents, and that's what you're doing here. I mean, you've had a lot of really successful people on your show sharing best practices and putting it out there for people to learn. And like you and I did not get here alone, right? I mean, we got help when we were younger. We needed to lean on other people. We needed to figure it out, and there were people that helped us through all that stuff. And I think you and I might be at a point in our career where now we can pay back, where we can give back, and we can give advice and help others. And that's I like being there. I love being with other agents who are helping other agents too. So thank you for doing everything that you do because it's really invaluable. You do not have to be doing this. Like you run a pretty big shop there, but it's pretty awesome that you're willing to do that. So thank you for that.
No, yeah, thank you, Matt. Yeah, the whole purpose of this channel is to just help out agents. I just can't do it by myself, so it takes great guests like you to make this channel happen. So thank you for being part of it now and
Yeah, you bet.
really helping out the agents. I really enjoyed this conversation today.
Yeah, me too, Dan. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, we'll keep in touch. Let me know if you need anything, and I'm excited to put this one out.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.